Alright, back with some new content. I'm being ambitious in this video and I'm going to try and record the most useful video ever, which is going to be all the theory content of Unit 1 in one relatively short, I think hopefully about 15-minute video. Here we go, let's get into it. First off, we're going to have a look at the type of questions you're going to get asked. So usually they are name something, so it might be a staccato, so name the staccato, identify it, so maybe this is in bar 23, so it'd be like name the identify the staccato in what bar, would be bar 23. Might be write it, so there might be a bunch of notes, write a staccato on top of it. And the trickier one is often describe the staccato. So the name is staccato, but to describe it is short and detached. So that's generally, for all music theory questions, fall into one of those sort of 4 categories. Okay, let's get into it. First off, we have simple meter, which means breaking the beat up into 2s. So we've got the beat here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice beat, and we break it here into 2s. So it's really simple kind of music. We can have compound meter, and that's where we break the beat into 3s. So you can see here's the beat, and it's broken into 3s here instead. But you might ask, well, what if I'm in simple meter and I need to break the beat into 3s? Well, then you need a triplet. So you would get, instead of here, you would go 1, 2, 3, and you'd draw a 3 over the top. What if it was the other way around? If we're in compound meter, which is breaking the beat into 3s, and we need to put 2 in, then we've got to do it in reverse. We've got to put 2 notes, and we put a 2 above that. So it's saying, hey, can you please break the beat into 2 now? And that's called a duplet. These are all the rhythms you need to know. Semibreve becomes a minim, which can become a crotchet, becomes a quaver, which can become with 2 flags, a semiquaver. You can put dots on any of those notes, which makes them worth half as much again. And you've got the rest, the equivalent rest. So semibreve rest is below the line, minim rest is above the line. You've got your crotchet rest, oh, that was a bit ugly, a quaver rest, you add more flags for semiquaver, and that's all your rests done. Of course, you have grouping. So in general, we try and group the notes into whatever the beats are. So here we've got beat 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we never go across the middle line. Down here is an example of how it's very tricky to read if it goes across the middle line. Beat 3 is somewhere in between the note and the dot. Makes it very hard to read. Anacrusis, or pickup or upbeat, is this little note here. It's because not all music starts on beat 1, and if you leave a big gap here like this one here, the song starts very strange. You count the song in 1, 2, 3, 4, and then everyone hits a note. So that sounds very strange, so we use an anacrusis, an upbeat, or a pickup. An ostinato is the same thing as a riff, which means a repetitive figure, usually in the bass. So we can see here, this figure repeats over and over again, like this. So we would call that a riff, probably, because it's contemporary. When it's Western art music, we tend to call it ostinato. You could also have this up here as a riff, or ostinato, but again, usually it's in the bass, but that could be one that's sort of a repetitive. Just does that over and over again. Syncopation is accenting an offbeat. So this can be obvious examples, like over here, where we've got a beat here, and then we're accenting these offbeats. And here's another example of that. But sometimes it can be more subtle. So if we had, usually we have a strong, weak, medium, weak beat in the bar. So if we accented the weak beats here, that would also give us a syncopated sound. ties are a way of extending some notes when it doesn't fit. So for example, up the top here, we need something to go for like 3.5 beats, but we don't have a note that goes for 3.5 beats, so we need to join it with this slur. And that means to join the two notes together. Bit the same down here. We don't have a note that represents that value, so we've got to join them. And also music is often played in not in bar lines. So if we had a note here, but we wanted it to go across the bar, we'd have to tie it because we can't write across the bar. So that's what ties are for. Swing as a concept means to play the note swing. So straight sounds like this. Swing sounds. So it's a bit of a lope to it. Technically, it looks like this. It's a triplet with a rest in the middle, I guess. That is what swing is. But rather than do that, we just write straight out like that, and then we say swing at the start, because this thing up here would be super confusing if we wrote the whole, all the music out like that. It'd be crazy. These are some tempo terms. They're getting faster. We've got adagio, which is slowly, andante, which is walking, moderato, which is moderately, allegro is fast and lively, and presto is fast or very fast. Some more tempo terms are these. So these modify tempo. So accelerando means gradually getting faster. Rallentando means gradually getting slower. A tempo means return to the previous tempo or return to the original tempo. Rubato means to do freely or in your own time. Usually see it at the start of songs with singers, and it's sort of play the chords and the vocals in any time you sort of like, whatever you feel. Double time and half time, twice as fast or half as fast, but tend to be from the jazz world and sometimes in the contemporary world. We don't see them a lot because they can be very confusing used in music, so they don't tend to be used a lot. Usually people just write it out twice as fast or half as fast. Beats per minute, or BPM, stands for beats per minute, and MM stands for Mazel's metronome, not metronome marking as a lot of people think, but that doesn't matter, and it's referring to the speed of the song up here. Treble and bass clef sounds easy. This is a symbol for the letter G. This is a symbol for the letter F. It's telling you that line is F, that line is G. I know it's simple, but you know, sometimes the simple things get you. All right, get into some tab. So you need to have a little way of remembering what these strings are. So elephants always, I can't fit it in, dig graves before eating. And then the number is telling you how many semitones up. So this here is on the this is on the D string. So 5 semitones up from D is a G. And you can see that that's the same there because this is the same part. 7 semitones up is an A. 8 is a B flat. The interesting thing about tab and guitars is that you can play the same note in different ways. So if we looked at this one here, now this string here is a G. So this is the 0th note on a G string, so it's G. The second note, or 2 semitones up, is an A. And 3 semitones up is a B flat. That's how we do tab. Similar to tab is guitar cymbals. So this is like tab on its side. So this time we've got elephants always dig graves before eating. The X means don't play it. Here we have to count. So we're on the A string. So we go 1, 2, 3 semitones up. So that's 3 semitones above A is a C. So we'd write a C. This one's 1, 2 semitones above the D string. So that's an E. This one's 1, 2, 3 semitones. Oh, I did an extra dot above the G string, so that's going to be B flat. This one's 1 semitone above the B string, so that's a C. And then this is 0, so this is no semitones up from the E string, so we've got an E. So that's what the guitar symbol would look like. All right, you have to know a bit about drum music. So first thing is you often get these multi-bar rests, which mean rest for 12 bars. This is a really complicated drum beat. You wouldn't need to do something like that. That's too much. This here is called a como sopra repeat, and it means repeat the bar before. And it's a bit easier for drummers to read rather than this, just played, done, repeated, what'll be 6 times. This little bit here, the number is just telling you how many bars of repeat you have to do. And we could look at this part here. This is a sort of a build. So the bottom one here is a kick drum, and the top one here is a snare drum. And then we can use that to work out this beat down here. So this is a kick. This line here is a hi-hat. And this line here is a snare. The snare, different head shapes mean different things. So if it's a cross like that, it means a cross stick. If it's a normal note like this, it means just hit it normally. So that's a drum music. If I get rid of all that, you would probably need to be able to write a drum beat, something like that. Accidentals. Once upon a time, about 2,000 years ago, they thought the only notes were A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Then about 500 years ago, a guitarist or a lutist came along and he said, hey guys, there's 5 extra notes that you forgot about. Everyone said, no, we don't need those notes. And so instead of giving them proper names like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, they just added them in with sharps and flats, thinking no one would ever use them. Mozart and friends came along, they used all the notes, and now we've got a horrible system that involves letter names and accidentals. It is what it is. It's not a great system. That's why some notes have 2 names, like C sharp and D flat, which are called enharmonic equivalents, stuff like that. What you need to know is you need to know sharps, flats, and naturals. But if you don't get it very well, especially if often singers struggle with this, because there's no real reason why this note here is called C and this note here is called C sharp. It just doesn't make any sense on some instruments. So it's a complicated thing because it wasn't built very well as a system of music. Just is what it is. Oh, I've somehow enabled diction. That's okay. Let's move on. Key signatures. So with key signatures, you need to know up to 5 sharps and 5 flats. Father, Charlie, goes, down, and. Battle, ends, and, down, goes. I thought I did 6 there for a second. It's okay, got it. So that would be major keys up to 5 sharps and minor keys up to 5 sharps and 5 flats. Tonality is an interesting thing. It's like a key signature, but not quite. It's saying, is the overall sound of this piece of music or this part of music, does it sound majory? Does it sound minory? Does it sound like a mode? To give you an example, something like this sounds majory, but it's not actually from a major scale. So that tonality would be major. Minor might be something like this. Somewhere else. So the overall tonality is minor. Mixolydian, I think, sounds a bit like the sort of Irish pipes. So that's what tonality is talking about, and you know, sometimes in a piece you have to try and work it out. So this part here would be difficult to work out because it's not really in anything particular, but this section here we could probably work out that this is E flat major within an E flat major key signature. This is the 5th, this is the 2nd of E flat major. So we would say, hey, this is a major tonality. We're going to get into some scales that you need to know now, and I'm going to use a chord spelling system or a note spelling system using scale degrees. So I'm going to go like the Aeolian has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then later I might go, hey, the 7th is lowered or the 3rd is lowered. It's really important you don't combine 2 systems. So this is my way of doing it. It's a shortcut system. You might have a different way of doing it. That's fine. Just skip this part of the video. What's important is you don't combine 2 systems. A lot of people do that. So this system starts with the major scale and then lowers and raises notes from the major scale. We'll give you some examples. I will. So the major pentatonic uses the 1st, 2nd, 3rd,
fifth and sixth of the scale. So in F major, we'd go F, and we could put a key signature in.
That would be a major pentatonic.
A minor pentatonic uses 1 lowered third, 4, 5, lowered seventh. If we did that in F major, we would have to go the major first, the major third, the major fourth, major fifth, major seventh, and then we lower it. So now I would lower that by a semitone, lower that by a semitone,
and I have a minor pentatonic. Penta meaning 5.
Aeolian natural minor would be 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7. So again, we'll go F major. I write out the major scale first, and then I start lowering things. So lower the third, lower the sixth, lower the seventh. Harmonic minor would be 1, 2, lowered third, 4, 5, 6, lowered 6, seventh. I should have drawn a treble clef. Major scale first. Then start lowering things. Lower the sixth, lower the third. I should do one in a different key, shouldn't I? Blue scale is 1, lowered third, 4, lowered fifth, 5, lowered seventh. Let's do one in G major. 1, then the third from the major key, then the fifth and the fifth, and then the seventh from the major key. Now I do the lowering, so I've got to lower the third, lower the fifth. I lower the seventh by getting rid of that and making it into a natural. So it's not always just putting a flat on. Am I right? Yeah, that's a blue scale. Should check that. Did too many. Go back one. Mixolydian is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, lowered seventh. Let's do D major. 1, 2, 3. Put the major scale in first. 4, 5, 6. Major scale. And then I got to lower the seventh. So again, I would turn that into a natural.
I'm so sorry. That is so ugly. But you get the idea, hopefully. Scale degree numbers is just something you need to know. So if you don't know what they are, learn them. But also, scale degree numbers always go from low to high. It's just something to remember. Technical scale degree names. You won't often get asked a technical scale degree name question, but what you will is get a question using technical scale degree names. Example, what is the tonic of this key? Or something like that. What is the dominant of this key? So that's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. Intervals, you need to know up to an octave, going up and down, and you also need to know them in context. So usually you get asked something like, what is this note to this note? Rather than write notes, you tend to get asked in a score, what's this interval? Sometimes you'll get asked between them, so what's the interval between this and this? And if your teachers are being particularly nasty, you might get the distance between this note and this note when it's transposed. Did I cover what was in that? Up and down an eighth. Modulation is when the song starts in C major and then modulates to A minor at some point in the song. That would have modulated to the relative minor. If it started in A minor and it modulates to C major, it will have modulated to the relative major. And with the dominant, it's a similar thing. If it starts in C major and then at some point the song moves to G major, it's modulated to G major. You don't often find the modulations in contemporary music. You sometimes find them in the B sections of jazz tunes. You often find them in Western art music. Here are all the chords you need to know. So shall we do them in chord spelling? So this one, major seventh is 1, 3, 5, 7. We always start with the major first. So if we were in the key of G major,
we would go 1, 3, 5, 7th from the G major. If we were doing the dominant 7 is 1, 3, 5 lowered 7th. So again in G major we'd go 1, 3, 5, start with the major, and then after we've done that, then we lower it. So then we put a natural on here instead and get rid of this one. Minor 7th is 1, lowered 3rd, 5th, lowered 7th. So if we did this in D major, we're going to start with the major chord, which is going to have a C sharp and an F sharp. And then we would lower the 3rd and 7th, so we would have to convert that to a natural and that to a natural, or we'll just get rid of them. Okay, we can have some alternate symbols. So major can be a triangle, so you might see C major 7, and minor can be a dash, so you might see dash 7. Dominant 7 is often shortened, so you get C, not Dom 7, you just get C7. That's the alternate symbols. The inversions are fairly simple. Here is F major triad in root position. Here it is inverted in a first inversion. Here it is in a second inversion. A second primary and secondary triad. If I go a C major scale, I add a triad to every note. And then I was to analyze them, whether they're major and minor and stuff, I would get this: major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, minor. So that would be the primary triads. If I at some point thought, hey, I really would rather have a major triad here instead of a minor triad, I've now created a secondary triad. It's not totally outside of the key signature. It's not totally weird. It's just a little bit different from the primary triad. It's now a secondary triad. It's a very, very common thing to do in all forms of music, because when you stay within the major primary triads, it just sounds a little bit boring, a little bit too nice. And so, yeah, very, very common thing to do. So any of the minors that become majors are called secondary triads. Often you'll get a 7th on there as well. That's then called a secondary dominant. Now dynamics, you get symbols for, obviously, so pianissimo, forte, diminuendo, decrescendo, crescendo. I don't actually know why piano and forte aren't on there, but they probably should be. Just remember that in questions, teachers love the little tricky thing of name this dynamic, describe this dynamic. Name is piano, describing is to play softly. Just remember that. What have we got here? Some things. So the first is just a normal old accent. Sforzando, you can look it up. Forte piano, you can look it up. You need to. They're sort of interesting little accents. Staccato is the dot, means short and detached. A slur is when you have a few notes, like so, and you want them all to be played as one phrase or smoothly. Legato is playing it smoothly. Tenuto is when you want the note well held. It's a strange concept, but it means really hold it for as long as you possibly can within the context of the music, and it's with a line across the top. Ornamentation, that would be, so we've got a note here, we want to do a trill on it, so we do that. Sometimes you get TR for trill. Oh, that looks a bit weird now, that there. You get a little, what have I done? Anyway, something like that. Looks like a little trill line. I've really ruined that now. Glissando is when you get this sort of thing down there. It's very similar to a slide, but with a slide you would see like that. Sometimes with a slide you can get short ones, stuff like that. A scoop, I might have to do a new one. Just a little scoop line before it. Sometimes a scoop can also be a little scoop above like that. Oh, sorry, no, that's a bend. I've drawn a bend. That one up there is a bend. Okay. Whoa, got there.
I've bailed out for the texture part. Texture,
Go to the Wikipedia article on
texture. It's got a really good example and good pictures of what those textures are. Is that a cop-out? I don't know.
Wikipedia to the rescue.
You need to know a lot of forms, and the form is a really confusing thing, I think, for students because it takes a bit of musical maturity to hear form. So don't worry if you don't get it straight away. It is a little confusing.
So some of the easy ones are this one here, verse chorus. This AABA is extremely popular in jazz. You hear it all the time. Same with this binary form. You hear it all the time. A lot of songs, 12-bar blues. It's a really easy one to find because it's got 12 bars. And some of the others here, it's just worth investigating what they are. And hopefully when you learn a tune, you'll also learn what the form is. So sometimes you're asked, hey, what is the form of this unidentified piece? It's a hard question often, so give it your best shot. My tip for working that out is that conductors and directors are the ones that need to really know the form of songs. And so when you look at the score, there's often really easy clues as to helping you what the form is. And the most obvious is the double bar lines here. They're telling you if there's a double bar line every 12 bars, you know it's a 12-bar blues. If there's double bar lines, and the melody looks the same for the 2A sections, that kind of stuff. I can't explain the whole thing, but look for the double bar lines, look for some little notes and stuff like that. It'll tell you, often help you know what the form is. Repeat signs you need to know are these things here. They mean repeat from there to there. That was an easy one. Often confuses people. Repeat with the first and second time ending. So go from here. When you get to this repeat, go back to over here. When you play it the second time, don't do this bar. Just go from here and jump all the way down here to this second time bar. It's because usually the melody that I've just crossed out here and here are very slightly different. That's usually why you need to do it. The pause and fermata is this up here, and it means to pause for usually about twice as long as the note is written. It's not really defined, but it's pause for so this would be now pause for the length of a minim roughly. I should show you. This little symbol is what the pause fermata symbol is. Or as one of my students said to me, which I like, the note needs to ferment. Fine means finish. Stop the song there. Coda, a little confusing symbol. This is the symbol for coda. It can mean this is the bar that you need to go to the coda at. So now you need to go to the end of the music and find the coda and play it. Or it could be written at the end of the music as this is the coda. So that's what a coda is. Can be a little confusing, but that's the symbol for coda. Da capo, often shortened to DC, means go back to the beginning. Often shortened to dal segno, often shortened to DS, means go back to the sign. So instead of the beginning, go back to the sign. DC al coda means at this bar here, so the end of this section here, DC, go back to the beginning. And then when you get to the coda here, now jump to the little coda section that will be written at the end of your music somewhere. DC al fine, which I haven't got here. I'll put my fine, means DC, go back to the beginning. When you get to the fine, stop. DS al coda. Geez, there's a lot of these, isn't it? Go back to the sign, DS, take the coda when you get there, and go to the coda that's at the end of the piece. This is a compositional device, and this is called a pedal point, it should be. I'm not sure why I've missed that. Or a pedal. It can be both, I guess. And what it means is that at some point we've had a walking bass line or some sort of bass line like here,
and then we're going to stop moving that, and we're going to stay on a single note, and we're going to build some tension by doing that. So here you can see I've been walking, and then now I've just got a bunch of B flats, and the chords are changing. So this is an E flat still, and this is a B flat, and it kind of builds tension. So it sounds like a bit like this. Here's without it. So that would be a pedal point. That's in a jazz example. There were examples in all sorts of music. That's a compositional device. Sequence is the same rhythm and melodic shape or melodic intervals repeated higher or lower. So that's a sequence example right there. Imitation is the same melody repeated in a different instrument, sometimes said repeated in a different voice. A voice is sometimes used as not a vocal voice, but a different instrument. So this is done by the clarinet, and then it's imitated by the vocals, done by the clarinet, imitated by the vocals. So that technique is called imitation. You hear it a lot in Western art music where the flutes might play something and then the French horns will play something. Oh, we're done. I don't know how long that video is, but that's all the theory you need to know in Unit 1. And Unit 2 and 3 and 4 just adds a little bit more complexity, like more key signatures and more chords and that kind of stuff, but not a lot more. So that wasn't too bad. I don't know how long that took, but you made it. Just a reminder that these are the questions you asked. So I've told you these questions. You need to now think, hey, could I write those intervals? Could I write those scales, that kind of stuff within the 5 sharps, 5 flats? Could I describe all that? Okay, I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you soon.